One thing I am noticing is, just like a lot of other vehicles with mud terrain tires that are lighter weight, you can feel the tire chatter. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing an AEV Colorado ZR2, aka what the ZR2 Bison should have been from the get-go. First and foremost though, a huge shout out and thank you to AEV for lending me this demo vehicle so I can make this video. I'm going to include a link to their website in the description down below. Definitely check them out. They obviously have these cool, crazy builds that you can buy, but on top of that, they have individual accessories that they also sell if you just want to, you know, for example, maybe add a snorkel or add different wheels on your vehicle. So check out their website. With that being said, let's get into it. So let's start things off by going over the front end of this AEV Colorado. So first off, it's built off of the, well, ZR2 package, as you can see, and we have the AEV decal here, and then also we've got our windshield banner there at the top, but the Colorado ZR2 has this raised portion in the center, which I think looks absolutely fantastic. And then we do have a snorkel as part of this package. Now the snorkel is more for dust rather than water fording. A lot of people, when they see snorkels, they think, oh, that's so the vehicle can basically be submerged and still get air to the engine. It's more like most of the dust is going to be swirling in this area and less so in this area. And so if you have airflow coming from up top, then you're going to get less dust in the engine bay, which is obviously gonna be good for filters and all that fun stuff. But from a front end perspective, this truck looks absolutely menacing because the ZR2 already looks fantastic because it has the blacked out front grille and it has the aggressive high approach angle front bumper. But the AEV stuff like the 35s definitely adds to it, and we'll get into those in just a moment. Now, notice this has a hitch added to it from a front end perspective. Now we have a total of, and you guys probably can't really see it very well with this camera view, 7 skid plates underneath that AEV has added to protect everything with the truck. Now this truck comes stock with about 10 inches of ground clearance. That's the ZR2 package. Now the AEV package obviously adds bigger tires and it just sits higher up in general, and so it surely has more ground clearance than that, but having all those skid plates definitely helps out from a protection standpoint, and that's the basics of the front end. Now, before we dive deeper into the truck, I do want to mention that if you want to purchase one of these already purpose-built AEV Colorados, there are some demo vehicles still available that AEV will be selling in the near future. So if you're interested in that demo program, just contact AEV. It's not technically a new vehicle because it has been driven around, but yeah, just contact them for further details. Now, coming on the side here, our tire and wheel setup is 35 by 12.5 by 17 in the front and in the rear. Now, you can get beadlock wheels with this package. This one has the, for show, not beadlock, but looks like beadlock wheels basically, but they still look absolutely fantastic. Now, these are mud terrain tires, and so we'll see how that changes the driving dynamics. And you guys can see here with the front suspension. Now this still does have the DSSV shocks from Multimatic. We'll have a better view there in the rear, but you guys can kind of see the shock setup right there. They have upgraded the tie rods with this so that everything's all beefed up. And then notice here with the fender flares how they're kind of sculpted in a way so that there's a little bit more room underneath. We do have marker lights here on the fender flares. I'll show you guys the marker light in the rear. But if we take a few steps back, this truck just looks absolutely menacing. I love the aesthetics on it, especially the snorkel. It's just cool. Notice with the protection right there all along the side, and then you guys can see the custom decals throughout. And then I love how it's like perfectly cut out here for the gas cap. Now this generation of Colorado still utilizes leaf springs there in the back, and then again you can see the DSSV shocks from Multimatic. Notice we have our ZR2 badge. I love how it's just like a subtle ZR2 badge, and obviously we got the AEV logos, but it's kind of interesting. Now this is actually connected to the frame of the truck, and this is supposed to be like added protection for the truck. So obviously being connected to the frame means it's going to be a lot sturdier than what you're going to have here with the stock bumper. And it's kind of like an AEV thing, is making trucks more capable off-road and then adding tons of protection, which also adds capability because you're not going to get stranded. Look at that, slow lowering. So notice this one already has bed liner and all that fun stuff. Basically, all we need to talk about is the fact that you can get a tire carrier for the bed. This one obviously has a tonneau cover, so that's why that one's not being used. And then also a winch carrier as well, so that the weight is in the bed instead of up front on the truck if you're not using it, which I think is very creative. Now, lifting this up, we've got this decal here on the tailgate, and if I take a few steps back, here's kind of like your rear view. Lighting's not as good back here, so can't really see as much with the truck, but still looks cool. And then we have our lights here in the back. Now, another big thing with these AEV trucks is we've got the diff cover, and again, like I said, 7 skid plates underneath. And notice that there's a little cap there on the diff cover, so you guys can check the fluid if anything happens. But that cover is beefy enough that good luck trying to break that and basically cause an issue is what I'm trying to say here. And then you guys can see the rest of the suspension and shock set up. And I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but this one is the little baby Duramax, which obviously will not be an engine option for the new Colorado that's coming out. We'll talk about that more a little bit later in the video, but this one at least has a diesel. Now, popping inside of this Colorado, this has a premium leather interior that AEV has added to it. As you can see, really cool design, and the seats are very comfortable with the padding. Can say that for sure. And we'll pop over to the front so you can see the front seats. Of course, we got AEV here in the headrest of the seat, and then you can see with the leather design all down below. Now, getting in, you got to step up quite a bit because, again, Colorado with 35s. Now, this generation of Colorado still utilizes one of these, so got to just put that in. Don't worry, the truck's been running, it's already warm, but you guys can see you've got the AEV gauge cluster, which looks absolutely fantastic. Huge fan of that. And you know, we got other Colorado stuff, like, well, heated steering wheel, cruise control, single zone climate, which I always thought was interesting with the ZR2s, hill descent control, diesel exhaust brake, because again, this is diesel, heated seats. And then notice we have front and rear lockers with the Colorado ZR2. So on top of having 35s, this has lockers. So this thing is basically a truck Wrangler. Obviously, it doesn't have a solid front axle like a Wrangler, but you know, it's got quite a bit of capability. And then you got stuff like a wireless phone, charging pad, all that fun stuff. But last thing before we drive it is I want to quickly show you guys the AEV booklet here, so you guys can see the packages. So something that I learned today that I did not know before is that there's a big difference between an AEV Colorado and the ZR2 Bison. So there's the Colorado ZR2 Bison, which is what a lot of you have seen on my channel in the past. Then there's the AEV Colorado ZR2 Bison and just the AEV Colorado ZR2. So the ZR2 Bison is basically AEV giving different options that they have on the Colorado over to Chevy, and Chevy puts those on a truck, and then it's basically like a normal factory truck. Whereas the actual AEV Colorado ZR2 Bison and the AEV Colorado are like fully decked out by AEV. So you guys can see the upgrades. Something that we didn't talk about that I should have mentioned, 4:10 axle ratio so that it can actually move the 35s. And that's the big thing with this package, is if you get a regular ZR2 Bison, you get a lot of cool protection with the boron steel and everything that you guys saw on the outside of this truck, but you don't get big beefy 35s. It just comes with the regular 33s, which is fine, but 35s are definitely cooler. Anyways, if you're gonna read through all this stuff, then check that out. And before we take it out and drive it, you always just gotta knock on some boron steel because, well, that's the way to go about things. But anyways, let's drive this Colorado and see if 35s change everything. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off. Here's your visibility over the hood, both of the mirrors, throughout the rest of the rear. And something I didn't talk about in the walk around, but I thought might have been something safe to assume, is just like the regular Colorado ZR2, this does have a 2-speed transfer case, so it's got 4-wheel high and 4-wheel low. Let's set off. So setting off here in the AEV Colorado, and I am super excited to finally get to drive one of these because I've been reviewing the ZR2 Bisons for like several years at this point, and that is a really cool package. Don't get me wrong, because again, it's got all like the, you know, boron steel on the exterior to protect it with the bumpers and everything. Like, cool package. But this is what we need. We need 35s. 35s are literally the key to happiness when it comes to mid-size off-roaders. And first off, these seats are really comfortable. That's something that I like about the premium leather seats that AEV does with the Colorado is the Colorado isn't necessarily known for having the most comfortable seats, and these actually help out quite a bit in terms of seat comfort. And obviously it doesn't run any of the functionality. The heated seats still work fine, which no, I'm not going to use them because it's like 100 degrees outside. Now, one thing I am noticing is, just like a lot of other vehicles with mud terrain tires that are lighter weight, you can feel the tire chatter. That is for sure. Actually, we'll go that way. You can feel the tire chatter. So that is definitely something to consider. Something that you could do if you wanted to is just not do mud terrains and do all-terrain tires, and you'd have a little bit less chatter, but then it wouldn't look as cool, and I guess it wouldn't be as practical from an off-road perspective. So you gotta pick your route that you're going with your life. Now, other things, this still feels like a mid-size truck. Definitely sit up really high, which is cool, but it still has that like lightweight, nimble feel that mid-size trucks have. And it's just partial throttle, but it gets up and moves. Yeah, so you guys can probably hear, I'll just be quiet for a second so you can hear the tires. It's kind of like a Wrangler or something like that when you add mud terrain tires to it, so it's not like it's anything too out of the ordinary. I'm interested to see if I floor it. It actually, like, it has a decent amount of punch. Now, the thing about this diesel powertrain in the Colorado is this is all about, like, crawling and getting, you know, decent fuel economy, but the big thing is crawling. This powertrain has so much low-end torque, and so you have this thing in four-wheel low, and it'll just crawl up anything. It is just, it's mind-blowing how good this powertrain is when it comes to crawling. And since this has an upgraded rear end 410 axle ratio, the crawling ratio is going to be even better. So that's another huge plus, is going to be the crawl ratio with this. Handling's great too. That's something that I love about AEV's kits is they do a really good job with making sure that the vehicle still has good on-road manners. Some of these aftermarket kits that you'll see on vehicles, they'll basically just not spend enough time in terms of making sure that it drives just well, right? They'll just basically go, oh, 35s, lift, that looks cool. They don't make sure that all the components work together, whereas I can tell with this, everything works. And we're in this parking lot because I went to see if this rubs. Not one little bit. That's impressive. You know, you'd think 35s on a mid-sized truck, you'd think that it would rub, but not at all. That is pretty dang impressive. So I guess we'll get into summing things up. And I did mention the new body style Colorado. So I need to say that we don't know if AEV is going to do a kit on the new body style Colorado, right? That at this point, it's your guess is as good as mine. So we don't know if that's going to happen, but if we, in a pretend world, assume that it could happen, then that's going to be a big departure from what this has, because the new Colorado, you can't get the V6 anymore and you can't get the diesel anymore. You can only get a turbocharged 2.7 liter 4-cylinder, which surely, you know, with 35s and everything is going to be quite a bit different. And so I think this is definitely special in its own right, having a diesel. It's not the quickest, but it sure is torquey. Having the diesel powertrain, the naturally aspirated V6, I'm okay with that going away. I have no problems with that. It's the diesel that I'm sad about. And so this, like I said, this is definitely a special feel. And, you know, from an off-road perspective, this thing would just be absolutely amazing. Again, with the crawl ratio, with the 35s, and AEV doesn't release official ground clearance specs. The reason that they don't do that is because every single vehicle has, like, when you have different powertrains, right, the weight of the powertrain is going to slightly change the ground clearance. And then if the truck is loaded up with stuff or unloaded, and depending on like how many bumpers a person add, like the different types of bumpers a person adds to this, like all this stuff, like anytime you add weight to a vehicle, it's going to, you know, obviously decrease ground clearance. If you take away weight, it's going to increase ground clearance because, right, the suspension is not being compressed as much. So they don't have official specs, but my guess is this is probably somewhere in the maybe like the 12 and a half inch range in terms of ground clearance, because again, the regular ZR2 has 10 inches and this has 35s and all that. So yeah, I think that's somewhere in that range, which is crazy for a mid-size truck. Like, because mid-size trucks have a really good breakover angle since they're shorter. So overall, this thing's special, and let's cross our fingers and hope that AEV ends up putting out a similar package on the new body style Colorado and then the GMC Canyon as well. We obviously have, they have officially announced that they're doing stuff for the Silverado and the GMC Sierra, because there's the, what is it, the Silverado ZR2 Bison and the Sierra Bison as well. I'll try to make a video on my second channel on that stuff. But anyways, hopefully they do this on the new Colorado. But if you want the diesel with 35s, you gotta get the current body style Colorado. That's gonna sum things up for our video on this AEV Colorado. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to AEV for giving me some time with this Colorado. Like I said, check out their website in the description down below if you're looking for one of their already purpose-built vehicles, or if you want to add some really cool accessories to your vehicle. I'll see ya.